Welcome back to the Growing Band Director podcast. This is episode number 148. I'm here with Mike Pote and Kyle Young from Carmel High School in Carmel, Indiana. Guys, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So today we're going to talk about a lot of things. And one of the reasons I reached out is because, as a lot of people know, your program is one of what we consider exemplary programs in the country. And it's obviously not because of magic. It's because of good teaching and good situations and lots of people. So we're going to learn a lot today. First thing I wanted to talk about was I was watching an episode of a podcast called I'm sorry, here to go. Oh yeah, That Band Life, and it was just with Jeff, but I know that Bobby Lambert also runs that podcast. And it was about teaching from the light, and Mike, you were on it. So I listened to the whole episode, and then I said I really like to bring this to other people too. So what is that concept?
That's something that Jeff and I kind of discussed. I believe that was 2019 that was done. There's a book by Doug Lemov called Practice Perfect, which Kyle has read, I've read. It's pretty much, if we have a student teacher, it's standard reading for them as well. It's a great book it sounds like it's a book about musicians. It's not. Doug Lemov was a teacher who created this concept of how to be really good at like the subtitle is 42 Rules for Getting Better at Getting Better. And one of the concepts in there that just really popped into my head was there's a phrase that he uses called teaching from the light. The concept being, staying on the positive side of things. Now that, is pretty general concept, but for us, for Kyle and I, that's turned into how we approach feedback. So feedback, when something goes wrong, the information for fixing that can be framed in a way that is positive. So a kind of a specific thing that we do is both of us like to have our students be responsible for most of the feedback that happens during a rehearsal, or a good chunk of it. And so we've created this concept with them where a section will play, an individual will play, and we'll pick one person who's going to be the teacher for 30 seconds. The only there are two rules. One is you have to start with something positive no matter what. Find one thing about how they just played that you're like, yep, that's really good, and be specific, not just general. And then the second thing is that you have to describe the solution to the thing that you want them to be better at. So like if Kyle plays something and he gets done and I say, Kyle, that was out of tune, I haven't really helped him. I've pointed out the problem, but I haven't given him the solution. So that's kind of the basic concept of how that works.
And then the opposite side, well, not the opposite, but in addition to that, we've kind of taken that as to what is our approach to the students as far as our demeanor, right? And outside of trying to have a sense of humor, but if we respond to something that we do, if we describe what they're doing in a negative connotation, and not necessarily aggressively negative, but in a belittling type manner where your sound was like this, and we all make that demonstration. Again, we're not empowering them. And so when we talk about teaching from the light from that standpoint, it is, as this person is getting feedback from us, do they feel like we are on their side? Mm-hmm. And are we framing the rehearsals in a way that they feel like we're on their side? And it's challenging. I had a rehearsal this week where I did not teach from the light. And on our projector today, under our list of things that we were doing in goals, it says have a better attitude today, and it said in parentheses Mr. Young, right? And so it was just, that's kind of our approach, and we feel better as people and teachers after rehearsals like that.
And I'll tell you too, for me, this is my 34th year teaching, so I think adopting this concept in the last 10 years, when we talk, a lot of band directors talk about burnout, not a particularly big fan of that phrase. It's like, this is one of those things that has helped me every day come in kind of rejuvenated and ready to go. And the fact that the rehearsal feels comfortable and it feels like a community, rather than this is me and I'm imparting things on you and I'm the only one responsible for it. And if it goes wrong, I'm going to put the blame on you. It's like, this is a community project. And all of our ensembles rehearse in a similar way, from our youngest groups to our most experienced groups.
I love that because as the teachers, it's so easy to go, okay, I hear 10,000 things that I want to fix and I have to fix all of them. And then the kids are going to stop listening.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So
So we have two phrases for that. One is what we call monodirectional feedback, which is what most of us experienced through our lives as band students, right? All feedback coming from one direction, and that's the podium. And what we try to do is what we call omnidirectional feedback, which is where feedback can come from any direction, any section, including, and I've done a couple clinics on teaching from the light. The students critiquing us. There are a lot of times where I say, okay, this isn't going really well from a tempo standpoint. Let me know if there's something you think that I'm doing that's causing that. And in fact, we had a situation a few years ago where we were struggling with a certain transition, and a tuba player raised his hand and kind of sheepishly, I think he was a little scared to do it. He goes, "Mr. Pote, I think you're rushing this beat into this downbeat." I'm like, okay, well, let's check it out. And of course, Matt Black, who is our percussion coordinator, got out his video and took a video of it and watched the rep. And we're like, yep, you're right. And the kid fixed the problem. So, but I think being open, band directors aren't generally good at that, but being open to that concept that the kids are smarter than you. At least that's how I approach it, right? I assume when I walk into a room that everybody in the room is smarter than me. And so their input is just as important, if not more important.
And the other thing that it paces the rehearsals in a more efficient way, right? When we talk about omnidirectional, that for the most part takes away from the equation students disengaging, right? Because they know we could ask at any direction at any point, okay, you're teaching now, right? And it also helps us with the flow of what we're trying to accomplish. And so both as a teaching tool and just a general way that we want to treat each other is kind of what we've tried to adopt.
I love that you give them the two rules too, because that gives them some framework when they do it.
Yes.
I also like that you mentioned the whole program, that it's not just about one ensemble, but all the ensembles and the different levels. I'll approach that. So that's like a universal philosophy. That is one reason that helps you make you successful. And I'll just go back. That's the That Band Life podcast. If anybody, just look up Teaching from the Light if you want to hear the whole thing. It's a great, 30 minutes, 35 minutes or whatever, if you want to hear more about that. Okay, so is it 2013 that Richard Saucedo retired?
Yes.
Yeah. So what was it like, Mike? You were there at that time, right? And then you took over in that position.
Sure.
So what was, first, let's start with this. What was his influence on the program and then on you guys as teachers?
Well, Richard's influence on the program starts obviously when he came to Carmel in 1983. And the school was much smaller then, the band program was much smaller. But he kind of came in with a vision, even as a young director. I think that was his third year teaching, that he came into that position. He just came in with a vision on what excellence means, and trying to build that over the course of the time that he was here, and then continue working past that. I mean, when we say, obviously he retired in 2013, but I still tell people that, this is still his program to me in a lot of ways. And I know Kyle feels the same way. It's like, we were very lucky to be here when that all started to develop even on a higher level. And obviously he passed it off to us, Chris Crakey, Andy Cook, and then Kyle came in, Matt Black a little bit later than that. The whole team just sort of has this same feeling of, we're trying to just keep moving Carmel the direction that, Richard kind of saw, long term.
Yeah. And we kind of, our approach is we want to make him proud of everything we are trying to do. He, like Mike said, started it all, right? And put the wheels in motion for it to even be where it is today, 11, 12 years after he retired. We want to make him proud and say, we've tried our best to carry on what you started and try to make it even better, through his influence.
A couple things that strike me. One is that you both seem very humble, and it's obviously easy as having a very good program to obviously get caught up in ourselves. But obviously I think kids would see that, and then the program probably isn't going to be as great for as long. So that's huge for those people who like starting to have good bands. It's not about you. It's about how you're empowering the other kids.
Sure. And a lot of that has to do, to be honest, with the structure of the whole staff. I think a lot of programs have an obvious figurehead who's, the person that you attribute to that program. For us, it's never been about that. Even when Richard was here, we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses, and we kind of just hold each other up in those areas, and we try to we put what we feel we're good at into the program. Chris, Kyle, Andy, Matt put what they feel they're good at. Our guard staff puts what they feel they're good at, and we just kind of mix it all together. There's never been that this is about me or this is about Kyle or this is about Chris. It's been about Carmel, right? And so we from our sixth graders on, we have incredible middle school band directors and incredible band, obviously, um, uh, programs sending us incredible kids. It's like we refer to it as the Carmel Band family, and it truly is that.
And I will, just because you know, Mike took over, for Saucedo, and he never feels it that way. But when Mike needs something done that he knows falls into the skill set of somebody else, there's no arrogance about it. Hey, can you go help make this happen? And I do the same thing with him, and we all lean on each other that way, because that's how to make it the most efficient. And if it's the most efficient, that's the best experience for the students. And we sit down, and it's never one person is always right. Mike, if I have a thought, Mike listens to what I have to say, and 9 times out of 10, yep, go for it. Let's do it. Right. And we converse, and then we decide what's the best direction. And Chris is like that as the department chair, and the one who's the director of the marching band. Everybody's open to each other's ideas because there's this trust, with each other, and that's what's going to make the kids have the best experience. And that's what we're always centering our decisions on is this going to make the kids better? Is it going to make the kids enjoy this? If so, let's do it.
Love it. A couple other people jumped in my mind as you guys were talking about that, of people I've interviewed who took over fantastic programs and had to sort of like not break the program, right? Like, give me a Cadillac. Hopefully I can not break it. One was Bobby Lambert, who I've already mentioned, when he took over for Scott Rush at Wando. The other one was Aaron Bush at Foxborough. I don't know if you guys heard of the Foxborough program in Massachusetts. He took over for Steve Massey. They're known as a fantastic East Coast program, especially in the jazz side of things. So, like, what was that like? So, Mike, you were one of the assistants at the time. How was that sort of process?
Yeah, first of all, Richard did a great job of giving responsibility over gradually to where it wasn't a clear cut, okay, I'm gone, now you're doing it. We have 6 concert bands here. I think at the time that Richard was here, it was 4. But I was already 50% in front of that group. The last year that he was here, Chris Crakey was running the marching band already in terms of the administrative and the ensemble rehearsals and all of that stuff. I had already I'd taken over a lot more of the responsibilities of the winds of the marching band. There was this sort of very smooth transition from when he was gone, and that it was just like, well, this just seems fairly normal to the kids. There wasn't that feeling of oh wow, everything's different. It was like, okay, yeah, now Kyle's here and he's in front of the top band, but Mr. Pote is still here, and it seems about the same. Now, as far as responsibility of taking that over, again, it was a collective responsibility, and like we've kind of alluded to, it's always been about me. For me, and I know Kyle feels the same way. Is like, how can we just respect and honor this gift? I think that may sound cheesy, and I don't mean it in a conceited way about the program, but I feel like that the Carmel Band program, if you get to live in it like we do and our kids do, it's a gift, and we got to cherish it and continue to develop it and continue to feed it.
And we take that as our responsibility, is that when a student completes their time in this program, they should have had a wonderful experience, whether they're in one ensemble or they're in 5 or 6. And we can't let down on the standard. And that's a big thing for us, is no matter how challenging it is, keep the standards high for the program, for us, to make sure that if they don't go into music, that's great, but they should have felt like, man, I had a great experience. I had great people around me. Um, and we try to never let down. We never settle. Sometimes it's not easier, but we try to never settle for something less, um, just because it might be a little bit more simple for us.
Right.
Kyle, I have a question for you specifically from one Kyle to another. So you talk about standards, you have moments where you're in front of the top wind symphony where they're playing at an extremely high level. And then I'm sure you have moments where you're in front of other bands, either a Carmel High School or the middle school, or out doing honor band, where I guess your tolerance has to be greater, right? You're just listening. So how do you adjust sort of your tolerance as you're listening to a fantastic group and like on down is either in age or in like what you're actually hearing and ability level?
Yeah, and we talk about the way we refer to our groups a lot of times is experience level. It's just this individual might be more experienced and instead of necessarily skilled, they just have had the experience to make them a little bit stronger musician. But one thing that we try to do is provide the same energy and enthusiasm regardless of the group that we're in front of. One of our ensembles yesterday, a freshman ensemble, they are very good at some specific things, and we try to celebrate that with them as much as possible so that they feel like, man, they're really on our side. Now we know they have a lot of ground to make up in certain areas, but finding the victories within the rehearsal, within the ensemble, and go, you know what? You are absolutely one of the best groups that we have when we do this in particular. And
what are they good at?
so yesterday, one of the freshman bands, it was the first sound they make every day is more organized than a lot of the other groups that we see, including our upperclassmen bands. And we try to stop and make sure they feel a victory. They feel, the gratitude coming from us. Now, in our heads, we're going, there's 6,000 other things that we need to try to make better. But that particular thing is like, yes, exactly. You do that so well. And so as far as tolerance, you have to know who's in the room. You have to know their experience level. You have to know, what they're going through in the rest of the school day and as they walk into the room, and just temper that, and still try to create a positive environment. And we also do that with, we use a lot of the same exercises, but we understand that their level of achievement is going to be different. But we still have to let them know when the achievement and improvement exists. And our goal is make it positive. We can push them some, but we also want to make sure that they never feel overwhelmed by what we're doing.
Yeah. I often talk about the fact like our younger groups are some of our most cherished groups because we, again, using the word experience, they may be the least experienced kid we have, but they're still walking in the door, right? They may not be very good at what they're coming in to sit down and do, but they're still making the choice to come in the door. It's like they deserve the best possible experience they can have because they still want to be there. So I think that's kind of what Kyle's talking about is like, we're going to celebrate the smallest things.
And for them, band may be their thing. They may not have the skills of some of the other performers, but band is their thing. Being down here is their thing, and their attitude is great. And so we owe it to them to replicate that in our rehearsal.
Plus, if they're enjoying it, they're not going to quit, because if they quit, you don't have the kid, obviously.
Well, and that's a big thing for us is make it an enjoyable experience so they want to keep doing this. If they don't feel success because we're so stressed about achieving this certain thing, they're going to feel it from us and they're not going to want to be a part of that.
But I think that's master teaching right there, to be able to go to high standards while having that approach. I think it's fantastic. I have an ensemble right now. I was thinking about what are they good at? Two things they're really good at is trying. Like when they're there, they're always giving good effort, and they're in school all the time. There might be 35 kids in the wind group, but like there might be one kid absent once a week. They're always there. So you're right. Celebrating those things are really awesome. Okay, so let's get into the Harmony Director stuff. And that was one of the reasons why I reached out. For some people, they might know all this stuff and it might be old hat. For a lot of people, this is brand new. So give us the pitch. What is it and what does it do for the band?
Well, Yamaha Harmony Director. I think a lot of people are used to using drones for tuning. You know, there are a lot of. We started with I think it's the Schwartz CD that has different. It was literally a CD that had every possible combination of pure tempered drones that you could use with tuning. So, and Tonal Energy uses. Obviously, people use that for droning. So the Harmony Director is. It's a lot of things, but its main function is teaching students how to hear the difference between equal temperament and pure temperament. So if we're looking for that perfect ensemble sound, we need to be able to combine those two concepts. We need to understand that if we're playing anything harmonically that is, you know, kind of in the simple triadic literature to more advanced triadic literature or advanced harmonic content, that if more than one note are playing at the same time, one of those notes needs to be, at least one of those notes needs to be adjusted one direction to the other. And so that is a very broad subject. There's a lot that can go into that. And so the Harmony Director, because of the way that it's constructed, can change between pure and equal temperament very quickly. It can change the center of pitch related to pure temperament very quickly, which allows us to demonstrate things for them. We do a lot of singing in our program, a lot. That starts to develop their ears to hear that temperament.
Same thing in the middle schools. I assume they're singing there too.
Every middle school uses a Harmony Director, and they do a certain amount of singing. That develops as they get older. But yes, everyone is doing a little bit of singing. That's sort of one of those things that when Kyle and I do clinics on it, it's one of the first things we talk about. We ask the room, how many of you own Harmony Directors? And, you know, 90% of the hands go up. And then we ask, how many of you sing every day? And then 90% of the hands go down. It's like the thing that we talk about is that the connection of the keyboard itself doesn't connect to the trumpet, and it doesn't connect to the clarinet or the flute. It connects to the ears, which then connects to the instrument. So you're skipping one of the steps.
And the singing part of that is you're taking out the physical responsibility of playing the instrument. I mean, you have to sing and you're worrying about quality there, but you're not thinking about anything else. It's ears focused on pitch and how to adjust it without worrying about manipulation of instrument or embouchure or air. And that way we're kind of minimizing their responsibility, but maximizing the way that we train their ears to function.
So briefly before I ask about the cost, it was funny because we have a mutual friend in Trey Blanco. Trey was here as a college teacher. Now he's at Butler University. He came out and did our All-State last year. And one of the first things he said is like, can we make sure there's a Harmony Director there as I'm doing the All-State band? So I thought that was pretty cool. And now last time I saw is the Harmony Director, like $700, kind of in that range.
It's $699. I mean, to be exact. And the thing that's great about that is that the original, that's the 300. The 200, I think, when we were purchasing those, were almost $1,300.
Yeah.
So Yamaha's done a great job of making that incredible technology very accessible from a financial standpoint.
Well, and people might think of that as a lot of money, but that's like you can buy 3 of them for a bass clarinet, right? I mean, that's the price is great considering what it's going to do for your band. So
for sure, yeah.
We have a handful of examples here that we're going to kind of go through and have you kind of analyze what happened. So the first one is just talking about the settings.
Though in some aspects of the video you will see the HD200, I wanted to take a moment to show you the settings as they would occur in the HD300. In the first set of exercises, we set the Yamaha Harmony Director to pure. And then we want to make sure that the tonal center is set to F. So we very simply just play an F major triad. And then the setting now shows pure F major. In these set of exercises, oftentimes we're using a full drone. So on the HD300, the hold button is here, and it lights green to let you know that it's depressed. And then we play essentially open fifths from the lowest to the mid-range. And this drone is occurring the entire time that the ensemble is rehearsing through this set of exercises.
Okay, so not to be obvious, but when what would happen if you keep it on equal and you go to do these following exercises and you don't press pure?
So yeah, that's a great question actually related to that. So in pure temperament, the C, so I'm playing F drones in there, right? I'm playing F C drones in pure and F pure. In pure temperament, the C concert is raised 2 cents. And that is actually, if you're from what people who are familiar with the overtone series, that's the actual pitch level of the overtone series in nature. So in nature, the C concert of an F would be 2 cents raised. So if the ultimate goal of using the Harmony Director is really creating overtones within your wind ensemble sound. So that F concert, if it's perfectly in tune when the ensemble plays it, you'll hear a C concert in the room. That C concert is 2 cents raised. So going back, if we're using equal, then you have a C concert that is, a 440 in tune. So if your overtone is happening and that C concert is happening, they're going to rub against each other and they'll cancel each other out, essentially. So in order to create overtones when you're using a drone that's a fifth, it has to be in pure temperament, or you're actually getting in the way of developing that skill.
Okay, the next example we're going to look at is called the pyramid exercise. You guys refer to it as A1.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, everybody has been in a band room where you've seen the poster, the pyramid of balance. And that concept is true in certain situations, but especially on unison. So this exercise is just essentially building up that pyramid from the bottom, and adding groups in as they go. Obviously, the higher instruments being last. The concept that we talk about with this is that you are fitting your sound inside the sound that already exists. And this is how we sort of start to create, especially with our younger groups, that concept of where do I fit within the balance.
So, all right, let's watch this example. Here it is.
Start with A1, the pyramid exercise. So on this exercise, our main goal is establishing tone, pitch, and balance. Okay, so we'll set the Harmony Director to F major pure, and we'll start with a full drone. As you enter, your sound sits inside someone else's sound. Listen for that overtone. Pure sound as you enter.
One thing I notice in all of these examples is the cutoff that you give is just as important as the start of the note and the center of the note. And I know you mentioned that in one of these coming up too, but it's so easy for us to throw away the cutoff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, we were Kyle and I both in our rehearsals. If we're very careful about, if we say we're going to rehearse, let's say we're going to play an excerpt of, let's go from measure 8 to 22 or whatever it is. When we get to 22, we hold out the downbeat of 22 as it is a fermata and have all the focus on us, and then do the cutoff. There's not that, kind of, okay, let's stop. We always kind of make sure we do that. And that's half of that is just a rehearsal etiquette thing. But the other half is let's stop at the end of this phrase and really listen to what we're creating. It's a moment to kind of look at a kind of a cross section of our sound.
Yeah, one of the things that I've gotten myself caught up in the last year or so is making it sound great in the room on the release. Whatever room we're in, what's the quality of the release and how do we adjust to that? Because we've usually been pretty good about organizing the release, but does it sound beautiful on our release in whatever room that we are in? And I've gotten that in my head and I've become a little bit obsessive about it. But it kind of goes to that point is there's an organization to it, and then the approach to, did that sound beautiful when we all release that together, whether it's unison octave or triadic based or anything like that.
And Mike, I like the hand position that you use about fitting in, about kind of making it,
Sure.
you know, that works really well. I will also say, you talk about in any room you're in, I teach in a super dead space, but then we perform in a very live hall. So it's like, it's really hard to get it to sound. And sometimes you have to go, this is what it's going to sound like at the performance, but the room is very different. So
I think also in that kind of situation, because we had that situation prior to moving into the renovation that we're in now, that if you can get it to sound great in that crappy room, when you get to the room that's a little more forgiving, it's really great.
100%. So example 3, we start talking about singing F while only hearing the C overtone. I have a question before we do it. You have a phrase where you say, put your hand on your chest when singing. What's the background behind this?
Well, I think you can, because we always start with hum and then to and then we come back to hum, and then sometimes we actually audiate it. We just take the volume down, but we have them put the hand here because we want them to feel the vibration. If they feel the vibration, they know they're doing as much as they're supposed to, right? Because you can sing and hum without creating vibrations. But if you can hum and sing and you're creating vibrations, that way that you're really, the kids are engaged that way. The other thing too about that is that, just feeling the idea of pitches in my body, right? The overtone and all that stuff is all based on natural concepts, things that happened in nature. So you want to feel pitch and overtone in your body.
Put your hand here on your chest. Hum it. I'm going to give you just the overtone this time. Hum it. Try to make it resonate as much as you can. 4 counts, open it to an ah. Keep singing. Try to hear your F concert as 2 pitches, an F and a C. Hear the overtone. Let's play that together. So measure 4 of exercise A1. 1 and 2. Listen for that overtone. There you go. Very nice.
So the use of the overtone in this helps us lower the F concert enough that we establish great pitch on the F concert. We're trying to create the overtone. Even when we take it away on the Harmony Director, thinking about the overtone helps center the F concert. And you could tell as soon as you were thinking about the overtone, the F became more in tune and more balanced. So keep doing that.
Excellent. Let's move on to A2.
What kind of challenge is it when they're hearing just the overtone, but then they have to play or sing the F?
Well, one of the things that we use essentially every day is we might not use the fundamental, but 10% of the time we use the overtone because we want that in their ear from the moment we start playing in the day, because our goal is to get that overtone. And so we want them to be able to hear it and to have that ingrained in their ear, knowing this is the goal to get that to speak. And if we use the overtone and then we're working on getting them to sing the F, it's forcing them to relate it to the overtone, and they're adjusting there too. And almost learning to memorize what that F feels like. And then the other thing, before I let Mike kind of jump in, is the singing part of it is we talk about vibration. Vibration in the chest and the singing, but also the instrument vibrating is what creates the tone, what creates the sound. And so vibration carries over from the singing portion of what we do to the playing. If they don't have enough air at the start of the note, the instrument doesn't vibrate the way that it needs to. So that's another way where we correlate when we sing to when we play.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Well said, Kyle.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. I have nothing to add.
Okay, so in the next example, we're going to start playing the whole notes and whole rests in full band, but we also transfer this over to a new key. In this case, it's F and then A flat. Why would you do it in A flat as well?
Well, some of these recordings that we're watching today were done obviously at a point where we were still in masks a lot. At that particular point, we were working on Molly on the Shore by Granger as one of our pieces recording for state assessment, which has a lot of content in A flat. So with all of our groups, marching band, concert bands, we will oftentimes not use concert F, but use whatever the pitch center is of whatever the excerpt is, or we eventually move to that. So in this case, A flat was the rehearsal segment was a segment in A flat. So we use that to just basically get their ears centered to that pitch.
Are there times when you mentioned where you just start in that key and don't do F, or do you more often than not do F and then move?
There are times where we don't. You start with concert F. There are some days where we do this with our marching band wind rehearsal in the morning, which is a little shorter period of time that happens before school. Where if we know we're going to have 10 minutes to spend on this one segment of our show where Saucedo has written us in the key of G flat, it's like we may start everything 1/2 step higher, including the overtone. So they won't even hear, we'll start with the D flat overtone and I'll say, okay, find the G flat in that and hum it. And it really helps them start to develop that pitch center of understanding that one note is actually 2 notes. It's fundamental and it's its most prominent overtone.
I think, not to get too holistic, is one of the approaches that Mike kind of spearheaded, and we've all decided this is the way we want to do it, is fewer, simpler exercises that work on mastery of a concept, so that it then can relate to things like the key of A flat or G flat or B major or whatever we end up using. That way the students understand concept, exercise, regardless of key, so that we can transition from one thing to the next, because we're focusing on simple concepts and working towards mastery of those concepts. That way it doesn't become too overwhelming for them. And that way we can get to other tonal centers with all the groups, honestly.
Okay, let's listen to that section here.
On A2, we're going to play a single F concert for a whole note and then rest for a whole note. I want you to concentrate on 3 things. Your sound is pure at the beginning, it's consistent through the body of the note, and it is absolutely clear and organized at the end of the note. Let's try it. Set the drone for a full drone, still on F major pure. We'll set the metronome for just 82. Hear that overtone. Focus on the overtone. Sustain. Nice release, very nice, and a great job of balancing. So what we want to do with that exercise is be able to start a note and have the overtone appear right away, okay? Today's excerpt for rehearsal is in the key of A flat. So now let's go to our most comfortable A flat concert and play the exact same exercise. So here's the overtone you want to listen for, and we'll set this to A flat pure by just playing an A flat major triad. Hum an A flat concert, this is it. Make it resonate inside your head. Open it to an on 4 counts, gently, warmly. Okay, now let's play the same exercise in the key of A flat. So this is A1, A2 in the key of A flat. Here's the overtone only. Warm and pure. And 1, 2, nice and relaxed breath. Hear it as 2 notes. Sustain. And if we take the drone away on the E flat overtone and it's still present in the room, we know that we're doing our job.
Okay, the next example we have is where you start moving up and down the mini scale and adjusting the third and the fifth. And for people who are just listening on the audio podcast, check out on YouTube because there's some visuals here that will help as well with arrows and things like that.
Yeah, sure. So this is kind of how a lot of times, again, when we're talking to people about how we approach pure temperament, they're like, I don't even know where to start with that. And this is the exercise that we start with. So we don't start with a triad that is being played harmonically. So this exercise is just the F mini scale, or it's essentially the lower tetrachord of the F major scale. And we move up to the third and land on it, and then break. And then we move up to the fifth and land on it, then break, and then come back to the fundamental. And so what we're doing is with the Harmony Director, if we're set in F pure, which the Harmony Director is set in F pure in these exercises, the A is automatically being adjusted down the correct math, 13.6. 7, thank you, 13.7. And then, yeah, sorry. And then the fifth is being adjusted up 2. Right. And so, and again, we don't actually, we kind of mentioned this earlier, we don't actually talk math with the students.
Yeah.
We're not looking at a freshman trumpet player and saying, hey, lower that X cents. We use phrases of significantly and slight adjustment down and up. So either that is a significant adjustment down, which is the major third, or a slight adjustment up. But we use this because it's a simple way to talk about it. In the Harmony Director, we'll sing it first. We'll really point out that A, because the A concert obviously is again, significantly altered. And they can hear it against what a standard one sounds like, or an A440.
So first of all, the pre-teaching that has to happen so they know how to lower, right? Because obviously every instrument, I mean, trombone's probably the easiest, right? Just move it out a little bit, but
Sure.
Everything has their own. So that's probably, is that happening corresponding, or has that all happened already so they have a good grasp of that?
Yeah, some of it is prior knowledge. Some of it we introduce. One of the things we do have is we use tuning charts, tuning sheets, because part of what goes along with this is some self-awareness of pitch on the individual instrument, to where when we're all singing, we can make the same adjustment. But if we're on our instrument, that creates a variance. So we try to have a base of information, base of knowledge for them individually, and then singing is more universal. But yeah, we do try to give them, here's how we want you to do that, so that it's not affecting sound and those kinds of things. So we try to build that up before we do a lot of it. But because the exercises are fairly simple, usually they can feel some success pretty quickly.
And the other thing too is, like you talk, a lot of bands will use like a Remington exercise of some sort and scale exercises. We focus on those as related to equal temperament. So when we look at a student and say, okay, lower that a certain amount, we're working on it in exercises, trying to center it exactly with the tuner so they understand what, in tune A440 is, and then the adjustment itself.
So I'm going to ask the stupid question of the session. The 2 arrows on the tuner on either side of in tune, quote unquote, what are those for?
In the individual parts of this exercise book, significant adjustment is 2 arrows. Slight adjustment is 1 arrow. So if a student sees on their part 1 arrow pointing up, they know they're making a slight adjustment up. If they see 2 arrows pointing down, they know that's a significant adjustment down.
I'm glad I asked that, but I actually meant to ask something else. On an actual like Korg tuner, when there's the 2 little arrows on either side of in, is that where the third and the fifth is supposed to be placed? Is that what those are for?
Yeah, those are what those are for. Yeah.
Great. Okay. I told you it was a dumb question, but I'm glad I asked.
That's not, actually, I just learned about that a few months ago, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what that's for.
I had a metronome once that has like, it's one of the automatic metronomes that you like wind up, and I didn't know I had to wind it up. So it stopped. And then I literally brought it back to the store. I was in college and then said, you just need to wind it up. Felt like an idiot. Okay, let's watch it. Here it is, the mini scale session.
On the up, make sure you make a vibration here in your body. 2 and up, in. Big off. let's move on. Big and full sounds. Very nice. Try to match that overtone on the C concert. Sustain. Good. Now let's match that on the instruments. Set. Adjust your pitch to the F concert. And 2. Really concentrate on resonance.
Okay, and our final one is going to be with a 5 chord progression, 1-4, and then 2-5-1.
Right. So this is how, after we get that melodic concept of the third and the fifth, now we're going to talk about the harmonic concept. So we have like Kyle mentioned earlier, we have a very few number of exercises we actually work on to master. We have 2 very simple 5-chord phrases. One is in F major, the other one is in F minor. So the one we're seeing is the F major one, which is, like you said, it's basically F major, B flat major, G minor, C major, F major. And so now in their parts, there's no longer the arrows in the exercise book that we're using. It actually tells them chord member. So if they're, they start on the F concert and then they move in the next chord, they're still on the F concert. Above their notes, it says R for the first one and 5 for the second, telling them that they are, changing chord members, even though they're not changing pitches. And so again, we do a lot of singing on this. We do a lot of, okay, listen to the harmony director make these changes, because this is the great thing about the harmony director at this point, is that if I play an F major triad on the harmony director, it's tempering it to F. But if I move to B flat major triad, the harmony director automatically shifts to B flat as the center. And then as I move to G minor, it switches to G minor. So what that causes is the roots are always in tune with a tuner, and the thirds and the fifths are being adjusted the correct way.
Yeah, and that's, again, we try to simplify it so that the least experienced student is probably making some progress on this and understanding, or our most experienced students are fine-tuning in a way that they can be very, very detailed, but everybody in the room understands the concept. And I'll say, we use this with all the concert bands, but I would honestly think most importantly, we use it with the marching band winds, which is the one ensemble all year where every experience level and every skill level is in the room at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And we use the same exercises. And so now we're blending sounds and blending skill levels together, and they're all getting the same information. And that's the way we feel like we can get the best quality of sound and get the concept across about adjustment and how this pure temperament works. And everybody's in the room getting the same information.
And the other underlying thing that Kyle's hinting at is that there's no difference between playing in a wind ensemble on a football field versus playing in a wind ensemble inside. Those concepts are identical. You don't make changes in order to have that happen. So basically, our approach to marching band winds is, let's sound like North Texas Wind Symphony outside, or at least let's try.
Yep, 100%. You mentioned a couple times exercise book. Which book is this? Is it something you've created or that's published, and can people get it and use it if they don't have it?
Yes, Kyle and I and Andy Brough, who is one of our middle school band directors, created a text that teaches, it's kind of twofold. It is exercises for students to learn how to adjust in temperament and how to learn that. But also it is a book if you are a director who is new to the harmony director, that can kind of lead you in a way of feeling really comfortable using it. It's called Ensemble. And then the subtitle is an integrated approach to the Yamaha Harmony Director And that is available on fanninmusic.com, FANNIN music.com. The thing I say about that, though, too, is that the Harmony Director will fit with what you're doing now. You know, everybody has their favorite exercise book that they like to use, whether it's Essential Musicianship, which we also love, Foundations for Superior Performance, all those things. There is a way to incorporate the Harmony Director in all of those. So although, yes, you know, if you want to learn more about the Harmony Director, you know, go to our book, but you don't need it. You can just, which I'm sure our publisher hates when I say that, but I mean, we don't push the book that much. You know, unless you just really want to learn how to use a Harmony Director more, you can use it with whatever you're comfortable with and whatever your kids like.
And we tried to design it in a way that, you know, if you are new or fresh to the Harmony Director, you're pacing yourself at the level that the students are too. So you don't have to have a lot of prior knowledge on using the Harmony Director, and we're helping you go step by step through. Here's simple exercises. Here's what the director should do with the Harmony Director. Here's what the students' goals are for the exercise. So that's why, you know, if you're trying to figure it out, that's why we laid it out the way that we did. And I'll say that, you know, since we've been using the Harmony Director more, we've gotten better at the analysis of what we're playing. Because we're taking the time to go through and figure out, all right, we have to figure out how we're going to tune this. What is the chord quality? What is the voicing? And it's taking us out of our comfort zone a little bit, especially initially. And now we feel more comfortable with it, right? And it's baby steps. And if these exercises is your first step, that's great. You know, and we have a student teacher that his first week this week of using the Harmony Director, we talked him through. Don't try to do it all at once. Here's what you should do. And that was the whole idea behind it, because that's what we had to do when we were figuring it out early on, was how do we use this thing? How do we tap into what all it can do? And it was one thing at a time, until we figured out this process seems to work pretty well for us, so let's use it.
I'll put in the show notes the link to the book as well if people want to see it.
All right, thank you.
Bring it right to them. All right, let's watch the video. Here's the example.
Show me your first pitch, and let's sing 5 and 6 to sounds in.
So one of the thoughts that Jeff, my co-founder of the podcast, and I always had was a concert band is the center of the program. And it sounds like you guys do the same thing. So you have a year-round concert program?
Sure. So there are 6 concert bands at the high school, again, by experience level. And, you know, 550 some odd students in band. So when you look at our marching band, which is somewhere around 290, 300 students, right? So only that many students, which obviously that's still a lot, are doing it. We feel like every student during the class period needs the best possible situation. So yeah, we're doing concert band year round.
We do in October. We're in the middle of marching band competition season. We do a full concert band concert in the auditorium with all 6 concert bands. We never play marching band music during the day ever, because that ensemble doesn't meet during the day. So that it doesn't make sense for us to do that. And as Mike said, there's a lot of students that participate in concert band only, or maybe some other ensembles, but aren't in marching band. So concert band is year round. It's our main focus from the moment we start school, because that best serves every student in the program.
And I'll say that prior to 1995, that was not the case. There was a marching band class during the fall, and then everybody else who was left over was in one concert band. In 1995, we moved freshmen from the middle school to the high school. So we became a 9 through 12 high school, and we went to block scheduling. which block was pretty new at that point. And we found that at that point, it would allow us to do the system that we use now. The other thing too is, and to be honest, is that it's made doing concert band during the school day while those students are also working on stuff after school has made the marching band wins better. Having that experience of playing grade 6 literature at the same time that you're working on your marching band music, the marching band music becomes something that's not challenging for them in certain ways because of the fact that they're working on these skills during the day, but in different literature.
Another thing that we do second semester, so after marching band is over, our jazz program meets in an early bird class, which is 8:05 to 8:50 in the morning. We have 5 jazz big bands.
Is that every day or alternating days or
every day? Yeah, every day. And all the directors have a jazz ensemble. One of the big things that I think is significant about our program is if you want to be involved, you're involved, right? There's not a cut system. So when we hold jazz auditions, everybody makes jazz ensemble. We just place them in a way that they're going to be successful. So we have 5 jazz ensembles that meet every day. We do
they're in 5 different places being taught by 5 different teachers, 5 drum sets, 5 all the things.
Yeah. And we do 2 concert sets with them. So second semester we have jazz band going on at the same time as everything else. Another thing that's really big for us, solo and ensemble. We just had that last weekend. I think we had 200 events go, and it's huge. Developing the individual is also something that is high on our priority list. All 6 bands go to contest in the spring. And we also do a concert here in February. So we're always working towards something and giving them those opportunities.
Something I'll mention too, because Kyle just said the no cut concept with jazz ensemble. That's the same concept with our marching band. Our marching band is not an auditioned ensemble. There are no alternates. So if you sign up to do marching band and you're willing to be there, you're going to be taught and you're going to perform as someone who's maybe has more ability than you.
And that's kind of our approach to everything is if you want to do it, you're in, but we're going to try to put you in the place where you feel most success and not as overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And then our percussion has a full-blown concert that they work on simultaneously while we're working on concert band music, and that happens in March.
And our percussion ensemble, our 2 most advanced percussion ensembles just played at Midwest in December as well.
So it is try to give them as many experiences as possible. What's happening while we're recording this is our symphony orchestra wind section is having a sectional. So our students can participate in one of 2 full orchestras as a wind player. And so they're experiencing that type of ensemble and that literature, if they choose to want to be a part of that as well.
It's just great. You have a program where kids, it's like a buffet. They can do one thing. Like you mentioned, they can do a lot of things.
Sure.
I think that's fantastic.
One of the other things that we are very well supported by our administration. Few years, the Wind Symphony 1, our most experienced band, is an honors level ensemble. But a few years ago, our department chair, Chris Krakey, went to the administration and said, hey, we have 2 ensembles that should be considered for honors credit. And same goes for orchestra department and choir department. And here's what these students are doing. Here's the requirements for it. Here's what the students are achieving. And so 2 of our ensembles actually receive an honors credit because of the demand of those students and what we ask them to do.
That's awesome. For my program, same thing. Like we have 2 ensembles. The top one is honors. And actually, I got to a point where a lot of our freshmen, young underclassmen in the second band, wanted honors credit for grade reasons, and we never wanted them to not take band for that reason. So we have an alternate path where basically they're required to practice more often, and so even a freshman for us can get honors credit. So grade is never a problem.
Oh, interesting.
And one of the things that we did to create the documentation for why should this be an honors credit is we have a lot of things that our students can choose from. So if they're in one of those 2 honors level ensembles, they have what we call a pick two, and that can be they're in symphony orchestra, they're in marching band, they do jazz band, they do 8 out of 10 pet band games. They play in an outside orchestra or an outside ensemble. And our goal is to get them involved in as many things as possible and really create kind of that, overall experience as an advanced musician. And that's worked really well for us. And, with the students being required in those ensembles to do solo and ensemble, that has kind of trickled through the entire program. And now it has become a big deal to a lot of our kids to do that, which is awesome.
Okay, and the secret sauce, which is not secret, is programming, making sure you have the right rep for your kids. So on the concert band side of things, who's a composer or a piece we should be thinking about?
For me, for our top band right now, Kyle is actually working on a piece that Michigan State premiered a few years ago called Petals of Fire, and it's by Zhou Tian. I think it's Zhou Tian. And his music is just phenomenal. It is on a demand level pretty high, but it's a really fresh harmonic content and approach to rhythm.
And I'll speak for Carol Chambers right now, to me, kind of runs the gamut of advanced ensembles to also some lesser experienced groups. She is creating a great library of literature, and we've played a ton of it, and the students really enjoy it, but also it leads towards concepts that we're trying to work on too. And so, just as of late, we've been playing a lot of music by her, and it's been really great for the students and for us.
Great. What about on the jazz ensemble side of things?
Well, for me, I guess I kind of stick with the standards, and a lot of people are this, but anytime we can play a Sammy Nestico chart, just from the sake of we're working on Night Flight right now with the top band, which is a great chart, but also the scoring techniques and the contrapuntal ideas that he uses are just really incredible, and just perfectly scored music. Not always really easy, but perfectly scored.
Just so you understand where I'm coming from, I teach jazz ensemble 4 out of we have 5 groups, and so I will fall into that medium easy to easy range. But one of my goals is they're playing swing charts, rock, funk, Latin, and balance, right? And there's a ton of arrangers that do a lot of great things. I love playing arrangements of Gordon Goodwin charts, swing charts, just anything that can teach style. And there's a ton of literature in that grade level that helps us teach style, that will enable them as they move up through the ranks and through the ensembles, that they have that experience, that we're creating some reflexes for, all right, when you have this type of tune, here's how you play, here's the approach. And so I really get to dig in on a lot of those.
Those are both just awesome answers. I love them because you're also talking about the history of the music. You're talking about studying history and not just doing the new tune. Like the new tune is fine too, but studying the history too. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's important in concert and jazz for sure. Understanding where a composer is coming from, what they're under, not just worrying about the piece you're playing, but listening to other things that he's written or she has written, so you get an idea of the development of that particular artist's art.
And if a student writes down every piece they play while they're in our band program, we would hope that there would be a ton of variation that they've gotten to experience in concert and jazz.
I love it. So Kyle and Mike, thank you guys for being with me and taking the time and all that. People can reach out to you, I assume, if they'd like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We sincerely appreciate you taking your valuable time and listening to the Growing Band Director podcast. Your students are very lucky to have a band director like you. If you have any suggestions for episode topics or think you have an area of expertise to share on a show with us, please reach out. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your band director friends to subscribe as well. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening to The Growing Band Director. See you next week.